Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our Valo webinar of today. We're extremely happy to have you here. We're really excited to be able to show you and showcase how to boost your intranet adoption for your end users. So before we move on to the webinar, maybe some housekeeping items before we start. First of all, a big thank you from the Valo team and from the Happit team for joining us today. We know you have some busy schedules, and we're very happy to be able to showcase some of our latest studies around internet adoption. So we're very, very excited to be there with you today. Second thing, this webinar is currently being recorded, so we will send you the link as soon as the webinar ends. You will receive that link directly into your mailbox that you use to register to this webinar. So you will be able to get a second view on this webinar a bit later on. Like maybe to introduce myself, my name is Seb. I am a product evangelist and partner manager at Valo. If it's your first webinar with Valo, feel free to ask any question in the chat for anyone. So it's going to be interesting to have your feedbacks. Ask any questions. We will take the questions along the way. I am also a Microsoft MVP and I've been for the Valo team now for a pretty long time. So I'm very happy to be here today to be able to host this webinar. And we have today a special guest with us. So we have Jussi. Hey, Jussi, how are you?
Hello. Hi, Seb. Thanks a lot for the intro. Hello, everyone. Very happy to be here in this first joint webinar we have together with Valo, and of course about my favorite topic, user adoption. So my name is Jussi. I was born in Finland, but grew up in Zurich, Switzerland, where I am talking right now in a very nice and springy weather outside today in Zurich, Switzerland.
Lucky you. Lucky you.
I'm a product evangelist and managing partner of Happit.com. And why we are together with Valo today, we will hopefully open up now during this webinar.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jussi, for joining. I know it's not that late over there. It's still working day, so it's okay.
Yes.
Here we're starting our day. I hope everyone has its coffee because we're ready to roll. Today the agenda will be actually fairly simple. We're gonna have really 4 different big topics that we're going to cover. First, we'd like to do some basic introductions on what we do at Valo and at Happit. Then afterwards, we will go to the thoughts from the trenches. So what are our thoughts regarding user adoption in the intranet scenarios? If you have any ideas, any question you'd like us to cover, please feel free to send that throughout the chat. We'll be more than happy to take those as questions. We already have some questions we'd like to cover. But if you have anything and we feel like it might be interesting to discuss, please send that over. It's going to be a pleasure for us to be able to help you. Then applied user adoption. So we're going to go through an amazing scenario on how user adoption can really be applied at the next level. So we're going to cover that, and that's also going to open some discussions. And at the end, we're going to open on the Q&A. So we will take questions throughout the webinar, but if we feel like it might be more interesting to cover that in the end, we might take your question and push it towards the end. So what is Valo and what do we do? So we're going to start by us, then we're going to ask Jussi to do the same for Happit. So what is Valo? Valo is an award-winning intranet solution that sits on top of Office 365 and SharePoint. So we're very, very proud of our product, and we're very excited to see that the industry is also awarding that product for its good sides. We have more than 300 customers, over 800 daily users in our software, and we scale on more than 35 countries. We have partners all around the globe, so if you need help, if you need a new intranet, feel free to reach out to us. It's going to be our pleasure to be able to help you. And today, I added one slide to our presentation slide because there's something that I think is super important in user adoption on the intranet side, and it's themes or layouts or UX. That is super important. And at Valo, we have 3 ready-made intranet themes. So they are already there. They are already working. You can use any of them to really kind of broadcast your message the way you want it to be. So we have 3 different themes: Lux, Lumen, and our latest one, which is called Candela. Stay tuned. We're going to showcase a bit of that a bit later on in terms of how it does drive user adoption. But I really wanted to showcase all of our nice UI themes that are already built into the product. Finally, we have more than just the intranet. So we have our Valo Intranet solution, which is all the most popular internet features in a single package with a nice UX and a ton of features, more than 155 features we have in Valo. But we also have our Valo Teamwork, which helps you to find and manage Office 365 groups, which is a pretty big part of user adoption here, because people now can create groups all the time. And how do we manage this training? How do we manage this fact? And finally, we also have our Valo Idea Management. And our Valo Idea Management is really something to drive user excitement and adoption of a platform by collecting and nurture ideas using the gamification. And we have a gamification guru with us on the call today. So Jussi, I'll let you introduce what is Happit.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I don't know if I'm a gamification guru, but I'm definitely very interested about the topic of gamification. That brings us to Happit. Happit is a tool what we basically just came out of the shadows, and we are pretty much in the beginning of our journey. And it's so cool that we can work together with the guys from Valo. And Happit has also been built in the cold north of Europe, in Finland, as well as Valo. So we made us a mission to actually solve the problem of end user frustration and disengagement. And we came up with a solution, and we believe that we found the way how to help end users during their daily work lives, which get much more complicated and more digital applications are flooding over the end users more and more in the future. So classical ways of guiding end users and helping them is just not working anymore. And what happens is that when users don't really get into the flow of a software or a process, they start to feel well, sometimes even stupid. And if you have end users feeling that way, to have user acceptance of your application or your process or your intranet you want to roll out, it's really hard to overcome that. So the employees' workday experiences, how to use these features. Oh, damn! Again, something changed. This worked last week. Now, why isn't it working anymore? What is the value when I use this form? Where do I get the help? And usually, what happens nowadays is that you get help from somewhere else than from the location where you're working on. So you basically get ripped out of your workflow. And it takes a lot of time to get back into this workflow. And this is exactly what we are actually trying to tackle with our tool, Happit. Next slide, please. So we figured out, or actually it's quite a fact, that frustration kills motivation. So that's why you don't know how it works. It's frustrating. You go ask your friend, and the friend doesn't know exactly how it works, or you rip him or her out of his workflow. And, it's kind of a snowball situation going on, and it will add up in a lot of time what actually is being wasted in order to find information and in order to get into this user adoption flow. Next slide, please. So it's simply too expensive to have this situation at workplace, and this slide is basically showing that at the moment. So first you have this WTF moments, and we call them in this slide. So, how is this working? Then frustration kicks in. Then you go and harass some of your colleagues, and colleagues, yeah, of course they are helpful and they want to help, and maybe they even have a bit more knowledge about a certain process or this tool and so on. So obviously you're going to try to find someone who can help you with that. And then if the person doesn't know, goes to ask someone else, and this adds kind of a chain reaction of questions and of people being disrupted from work during this time when you had a question about something. So it can even happen that you have more frustration happening because your friends cannot help, and they have very tight deadlines, everyone. So it can become really messy. And what is happening then? Okay, you start opening support tickets, and as we know, support tickets, they cost, and it takes a long time for you to get help. And usually when you get help, you solved it maybe yourself, or it was just mostly too late. And this whole situation just adds up being a really, really expensive problem. Next to that the end user really feels alone in this world of digital transformation. Okay, next slide, please. So we want to change the situation from this being frustrated to this, so that the end user actually gets help on the right context at the right time when she or he needs it. Maybe you can remember the good old times from Clippy. So we see Happit a little bit as the younger brother from Clippy. And how it will work in action. This is something that we will show during the showcase later on during this webinar.
Cool, thank you, Jussi. Quick thoughts from the trenches here. So here, I might have a couple of questions for you, and I have a couple of thoughts about that. But I really want to hear from the trenches. You guys have been doing a ton of different user adoption projects. You've been building a tool to actually automate some of those user adoption patterns. I have a couple of questions on how. What are your thoughts, and what do you think about what is current in the user adoption space for pretty much anything around the intranet? But let's maybe push it a bit further to the Office 365 environment. So we know we've been living in that world where everything is changing. Office 365 groups, Microsoft Stream, Microsoft Teams, Outlook, that is changing every single day. So I'd like to hear your thoughts from the trenches on a different topics. Is that good for you?
Yeah, of course. Let's have a discussion, Seb. Of course, we both are very active in the whole community, and we are very proactive in getting information from all the different cool community members all over the world. But the funny thing is that the problems are mostly everywhere the same. So let's have a bit of discussion about this topic.
Awesome. So let's start with my first kind of pointer. My first question that is gonna start our discussion here. So first, the question is the following: what is the reaction from end users when rolling out a beautiful and designed internet in a box like Valo? Is it enough to only change the UX? What are your thoughts on that? Is that enough? Just to have something that doesn't look like SharePoint, is that enough to make them adopt the tool?
I think it's a very, very good step into the right direction. Obviously, you guys put a lot of thought into it when thinking about, okay, how can we make Valo work for the end users, and making it look pretty is a big part of that. I mean, you may laugh about it, but if something looks nice and appealing, it definitely makes the end user feel better about the certain experience. Is it enough to only change the UX? That's a very, very tricky question in that sense. I would say it's not enough to only do changes in the UX. User adoption is a journey, and it's not done with just tweaking something or doing killer user manuals and things like that. The end user basically needs especially in the beginning, help all the time. So I always make the reference with video games. You like video games, Seb?
I'm not a big gamer, but I like to play some time to time.
Okay, so a well-designed game is built in a way that the player is actually taken by the hand and guided through the game from the very first second the player opens the game. So they are not like, you know, a test game or a training game or even like courses or learning portals. They're more like community-driven forums, maybe. But if a game is designed well, the end user never feels lost in the beginning. So she or he always knows, okay, how do I go forward? How do I walk through this tutorial? And if the game is designed even better, the end user gets rewarded when she or he understands how the game is working. And this is where the engagement and the gamification is actually kicking in. And this is also the key, what brought us to build Happit. So to answer that question from my point of view, only making the let's say user experience nice is a very, very good step into the right direction, but it maybe one quench is still missing to really drive and boost user adoption. And this is why we two are talking here together in this webinar.
Absolutely, and I would even add a couple of thoughts from our point of view. So we've deployed more than 300 different Valos in the world, and the first reaction of everyone, like every single time you put Valo in front of someone, the first reaction is always, "Oh my God, it is so beautiful! It is so nice. Thank you for making it not looking like SharePoint."
Exactly.
Especially for the people that are more in the tech side, so they know what SharePoint is all about. Maybe the user doesn't know, which is okay. But the tech side, they know how SharePoint is an amazing platform, but might sometimes lack in terms of user experience and user interface. So it is important for us to build something on top of that. And I will show you in a couple of seconds our newest UI, which really, really drives people to have that thought on the first load of the page when they first see a Valo. The second thing is also as from a brand perspective. So think about an organization that wants to kind of enable their users to be the brand ambassadors. One of the best ways to be a brand ambassador is to make sure that you live the brand days in and days out. Is it by wearing some swag from the company or going to the intranet and always see the logos and see the brand and see the colors and making sure that it is close to the values of the organization. And we really think that an intranet or any, I would say, digital workplace or any application should be able to express those values in its UI and its UX. So for us, the communication managers are always fairly happy, and it helps because if you have the same feeling from one application to the other, you have less training because you already know the feel. You want to know kind of where to go. It kind of gives you a hint of where to go when you want to move on from one to the other. Is it enough? Is it enough? I would say for us, absolutely no. And one of the reasons why is we live here in a world where Office 365 is moving so fast. We have new UIs, we have new types of sites, we have new applications, we have new UX elements that appear all the time. And changing the UX, yes, is a good thing to make it easier for the user to use it. But if you change it over and over and over, it can become confusing. So this is it is something that you want to have. And when you said this is a journey, it is a journey. It is you cannot say I adopted a platform. You are always in the process of adopting and enhancing your knowledge on that platform. It is it is very, very important for us to kind of understand that this is like a never moving movement. So let me show you maybe what we did at Valo. So let me go right here. And here we have our newest Candela UI. This is our UI that is available for all of our customers. Currently, it's part of one of our 3 options, Lumen, Lux, and Candela. But I want to show you Candela in terms of user experience. So I want to highlight 3 main experiences. The first one is the big image we see right here in front. It attracts the user attention. It showcases that this is an highlight news and you should care about that news. It's not something that you need to look somewhere. I need to go anywhere in the environment. No, it is right there, right in your face. And this is something that should be important for you, because in that case, it is targeted. It's only people from a certain location that we see that. So instead of going to the news center, starting to browse around the news, we make it easier for any user to have that. So for us, that's an easy way to get more user adoption because the content is relevant. So first thing. Second thing is one of the most important thing of an intranet is the navigation. How easy it is to navigate from one portion to the other, from one section to the other, from one department to the other, because we really think it is important. So here we build what we call our mega menu. That mega menu highlights not only the first level of navigation, but everything that has to be seen in that structure. And for us, this simplifies a lot. You don't need to look around and start understanding what is the structure of the site. No, everything is in there. If I want to go to my New York location here, I just need to click on that and that's it. I don't need to find the good menu on that. So for us, super, super, super important.
So, Seb,
yes.
Quick question. So,
yes.
Candela is pretty new, right?
Yes.
And you, Lumen and Lux before they are in use quite a while already. So, when you designed Candela, did you listen at end user feedback?
Oh yes.
For the older templates. So, what type of feedback there was would be interesting to hear. I mean, and how did you incorporate that feedback into the new template?
Oh my God, that's such a good question. So I would say the 2 biggest feedbacks we had were on the side of navigation. Navigation was nice, but it was hard to find your way through the navigation because you cannot see everything. So people were kind of using more the search icon than navigation to get to the content, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But for like day-to-day things, you want to be able to navigate to it and not to search every single time. So we redesigned our navigation to take that into consideration. And that's why also we added that image and that call to action here, is because people wanted to kind of promote best practices for that area. And it told us we want to have a place where we can, like, I don't know, drive a contest or invite people for our Christmas party or something like that. And we want that to be part of the user experience, not like in the content somewhere, but part really of the user experience. And that's one of the biggest feedback we've got. Mm-hmm. Second we've got is Lux was a 9 tiles links on the right side. And those 9 tiles were, we did some studies, and 9 different links is actually a good set of number to be able to kind of find your way through, not having too much. But here what we did is here all of our links that we can see here are all dynamic, and also we can add some of them. So we're not limited to 9 anymore, which was one of the biggest feedback. Some customers made some customization to bring in 16 different icons or just 4, depending on their needs. And for us, it is extremely important to make it adjustable and really link to your user to your organization expectations. So if you want to send your users to different types of artifacts or different pages, we really thought that this was something that we needed to improve. The last thing was also that people might be confused with their personal navigation. So we have an option in Valo to add some personal navigation in there. And that personal navigation was in a star right here on the top right. And now we're giving the options to add it in an option here called My Tools. And My Tools bring all of your own links in there. So those are your own navigation. You can add any page from the organization in there. And it is really how we want to make sense of a single approach, which is our mega menu, to really bring our mining support here. So people love this. It's a lot more even used than it was before. So we're actually pretty cool. So that's what I wanted to show very quickly. That experience that we have now that really drives better user adoption of their SharePoint intranet.
Cool, thanks.
You're welcome. So that was our first question. Now I'd like to ask you a second question that I think is super important because it brings more concrete scenarios here. Do you have any concrete use case that you can actually share from a customer that maybe did a long run adoption campaign or use Happit to really improve the user adoption? I'd like to have a use case from you, Jussi, on how you see user adoption being like the masterpiece of your work.
Yeah, thanks for this question, Seb. So actually we have it was a customer in Finland. I cannot now publicly announce the name here, but it's exactly what we did. It was a Valo customer, and they had or have Valo in use already for a time and got classically trained on how to work with the intranet. And there was fairly good user adoption rates at that time already, so you can see that the work you guys have been doing had already a very positive impact. Then we applied Happit on top of the Valo layer and trained them in explicitly different processes in how to, for instance, upload documents or to fill in forms within the intranet with the help of our framework. And that was running for a while, and then we did a survey with the end users where we sent out a survey for 100 end users and asked them, hey, how did you feel about this new way of learning or training how intranet is working? And we got a response of 92 from these 100 guys, and 89% said that this is actually the right way of teaching.
That is huge.
Software. And so it was a very, very good result from the survey we have did, and it's just one of the examples I want to share. And how it works, we will then quickly see in the video later on.
That is awesome. Actually, I like to hear numbers. That's what I like. And here it comes from the end user, so they're really not usually lying. Usually they're pretty vocal about how they feel. And exactly. I like to see that people are actually really finding their way through this new way of approaching like user adoption and like in context training for them, because I think it makes sense. You don't want to leave. Like when did you when was the last time you had a Facebook course or a Facebook training? Nobody gets that, because you want to have a nice user adoption and maybe tips along the way. And I think that's exactly what you guys are providing, which is pretty cool. From our end, it's funny because last week we were actually at a customer's and we were discussing exactly that. Okay. So it's here in Canada. So we have a customer that is doing in terms of how to really engage their users in the platform. They're doing daily internal webinars on how to use the platform, one or the other, different pieces. And those are really targeted for the end users, not for the contributors or whatsoever. It is important for us to kind of give them the ability to do that. So they've been taking care of building those webinars. Running them on Office 365. Everybody is joining them, and the good thing they do is that they save those webinars as videos, which are now uploaded to Office 365 videos. And they can make them available on demand to the user. So if someone missed it, they could go in there. So it's still closer to the classic way of doing training. Yeah. But still, they're doing it, which is for us, I think a great opportunity for them to involve their users a bit more, which is what the communication team over there love, because it simplifies their work. They only have to provide a 1-hour webinar or a 30-minute webinar, and then afterwards everything is better.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very great way of generating content, and most of the people, they focus on generating content, and lots of good dollars are spent on generating content. And content is king, but I also say context is queen. And that's the thing, you need to make these very great contents available for the end user at their fingertips when they really need it. And I think that is what will really boost the user adoption to the next level, and stop the frustration about things. There are some questions in the Q&A. I think we can take them up in the Q&A section in the end, where we can actually go more into answering those questions. They go a bit into the same direction.
Actually, that's I'll ask you the question and we'll discuss about it. I think it's a very, very interesting topic, and here it makes sense for use cases. So let's go with that. How come services like Workplace by Facebook and Slack are adopted automatically in the organization? No need for fast track or gamification, or even hiding the SharePoint look. How come those services are getting so much good user adoption rather than a platform like SharePoint or Office 365?
Yeah, this is a very good question, and very interesting. And I think we could fill the whole webinar with answering this question. But the good thing with Slack or Teams or so is that they are really, really, really easy to use. And they don't change much the behavior as people are used to communicate. We are used to text, we are used to WhatsApp, we are used to chatting. And this is basically what they do in the beginning. You talk to people with text. So you're not changing behaviors or habits of end users to do that. And this is why it's so easy for those platforms or users to get on board. But what then? How do you implement organizational taxonomy in Teams, right? How do you explain end users to run project in Teams, right? It's not enough that they can use the tool in writing text in it and communicate with each other. You need more than that. And this is the thing, what we said in the beginning, user adoption is a journey. It's not done with just making users to know how a certain tool is working. I mean, it's the same with kind of driving cars, you can learn pretty quickly to drive a car, and you can drive from A to B, but to become a good driver and actually, plan journeys and stuff like that, it's a total different thing. Or kind of navigate through a large city in rush hour and things like that. So user adoption is a journey, and only users knowing how to use a tool is not the only key of user adoption. It's much more than that.
Absolutely, and I think here you press on the right button here, especially for tools like Workplace by Facebook, which I think is a pretty decent and interesting tool to engage your workplace. Because we're using Facebook every single day, it was natural for Facebook to just bring that to the workplace. Though there's some enterprise level organization that are not available in workplace by Facebook. Like, you don't have that collaboration pieces that SharePoint will offer. You don't have that, even Teams, like in Facebook, in Workplace by Facebook, there's no like live chats at a large scale. It's more one-to-one or small groups of people, but you have groups, and it's all a bit different. So the fact that Facebook is more, Workplace by Facebook is more of a consumerization of an existing tool and putting that to the workplace makes it easier. And I 100% agree. Same thing with Outlook. why do you think today the outlook for the enterprise, so on the web, is very similar to the outlook for the users? Because users are used to that UI. So why don't bring that UI and do something very similar? Same thing with contacts, same thing with OneDrive. Why do you have the exact same UI in OneDrive Consumer and OneDrive Enterprise? It's because it is one UI to rule them all, so you can actually have a decent adoption and training for that.
One UI to rule them all. I like this.
Exactly. So let's move on to the next our next question, which is actually very similar, not similar, but in the same sense that the one we just covered, which is there a right way to train end users? What is the right way to train end users? Training is at the core of user adoption, because if you're trained and you know what you do, user adoption is a lot easier. What's the right way, Jussi? How can we make sense of that training part of technology?
Well, I think right or wrong is very harsh to say it. So the world is not black and white. It's 50 shades of gray, you know. Okay. The thing is that
don't go there, Jussi.
It really depends. So it's a typical consultant answer. But what I believe, or what I think, is what people are born to do, or what is natural to us, is learning by doing, right? So we learn the most when we can actually really do something and try to solve problems and things like that. Our school system is built in a way that we need to, learn things by heart, and then you learn those things, and then you go to the real world, and then everything else happens, and what do you do with this? And this happens a lot also in the business world when it comes to training, right? You go to courses or you have manuals, and a lot of people, very smart people, taught a lot of different things to put into place in order to try to assume what type of information and knowledge is relevant for the end user. But the end user's day is really fuzzy, and when they start doing some work and try to get things done with their new systems, there are always countless of use cases and different scenarios happening at this very moment. And that happening, and the end user being able to actually walk him or herself through this goo of problems, actually makes us learn the best. Yes. So in my point of view is that giving guidance and help to the end user at the time, at the moment they need it, when the training content is even coming from the peers and colleagues who are actually day by day working with that certain system or application, is the right way to go. Because it's just natural. It's the way we learn best, learning by doing.
And I totally agree. We had a customer at Valo that actually built a full kind of a training community using one of the tools they had, which was Yammer. That used the fact that someone did something and shared it, and then a ton of people started doing the same. A feature that was maybe not well known or not adopted like it should be, and then just by the fact from the peers and the fact that, oh, here's how you do it. And then because it becomes kind of a trend or even viral, people were starting to, in that case, was creating a ton of news article. And people were not exactly aware of that. So I think it's interesting to know that training from the peers is actually pretty, very, very, very interesting to get that in mind and to push your users to do it. We also saw a lot of on-demand training, videos, manuals that people are using. We know it's probably a bit not a thing of the past, but it's less current than it was in the time. But still, people are like to read, and if you put that documentation in context and available inside the technology, that's already a good start. Instead of going to another platform to get your training materials, it will be a great thing also.
Absolutely.
we have a question. I'd like to maybe ask it for you. Oh, no, I'll keep it for later on. In the Q&A section.
Yeah, we have still 6 minutes.
Exactly. So that's why I wanted. I saw that.
Yeah.
Here, very simple question, and I'm gonna do one thing. It's gonna be called modern SharePoint. How do we manage this invasion of modern sites? Think about it. 2 years ago, we were all SharePoint experts. We knew our things. We knew how it was happening. We knew ins and outs of SharePoint because it was the same UI for the last, 10 years. Now with modern SharePoint, everything changed. The habits change. Everything changed. How do we tackle that transition? How do we provide a better user adoption for our users using that? It's quite of a hard question. How do we can help the users to transition and even maybe to live in both worlds at the same time? So I feel that today we need to give more, I don't know if it's a training part of the deal, but it's absolutely something we need to take the users by the hand and showcase and do some workshops around what is new in modern SharePoint so you can leverage it and understand it. Now you have two versions of SharePoint to work at the same time. Do you agree on that?
Yeah, I mean, the main problem I see with modern sites when we look into SharePoint is that the whole way how modern sites are structured is way different than we are known in the classic world, with the subsites and site structures you have made. Now everything floats on the same level, and you need to reintroduce that somehow to the end user to break out of the old ways of thinking in hierarchies. And this whole hierarchy thinking is very much hardwired into our brains, also when dealing with files. The whole folder versus not folder discussion goes a bit into the same direction. So the problem is that we have a change of behavior and a change of habit in how to store, work and retrieve information within the internet and with SharePoint. And in my point of view, this is the main issue. And how to tackle that? Well, this is something I will work on intensively in the next few years.
and we'll all be doing that. So yes. I know you guys are building your tool also on top of modern SharePoint, and we are also building Valo on top of modern SharePoint as of now. So this will be an interesting topic in the next couple of years. But before we go to our Q&A section, since the beginning of the webinar, we've been talking about seeing kind of Happit in practice. And I'd like to give you the opportunity here to kind of go through a real end user scenario on how in context training, in context help, user, I would even call it user adoption as a service, is available in Happit.
Yeah, so let me maybe start a bit from the whole story, how we come to this.
Yeah.
It's a video what we're going to show, and we can discuss what's happening during the time, Sébastien. So the video we are showing is actually from a use case. My brother from another mother, Marcel Haas, and I were showing last year in the SharePoint Saturdays. And we actually were thinking, okay, how can we use the modern tech, what Microsoft is bringing in the Office 365 stack to actually drive user adoption. And our session was called Giving Superpowers to End User with the help of Office 365. And we are trying to link the different tools we have on Office 365 together in order to really build a use case from a not very technical guy, sales guy, who likes to create a case in Paris, France, and send a document to the customer for approval for a project. And the story of that was that this is a new guy in the company, has no idea where to upload the document. And then actually we are using different technologies to actually guide him through the process. And maybe if you can start the video, Seb, I can comment on what we have been doing.
Absolutely. And for the audience, here is a very, very cool scenario of how super extreme tech can actually be simplified using tools like Happit. It's very, very cool. So
Happit is only a part of the whole thing. Basically, we used really out-of-the-box stuff from Office 365. This is, by the way, Marcel. So we started with that video that he has an emotion capture going on, which captures his motion. So he looks a bit frustrated in this. So what is happening, that this Power App is sending a picture through SharePoint library, and there it's triggering a flow which goes to cognitive services and captures his mood. And that, again, is triggering a bot on Teams saying that, hey, we noticed that you look a bit frustrated. Can we help you? So we now change over to Teams. So the bot, Alfred the butler, says, hey, you look a bit frustrated. We noticed that through the motion capture, what we use the cognitive services to figure out the mood of Marcel in this case. And the use case goes further like this, that we say, Alfred, please help me.
Awesome. Let me just ask you a question here. So here we have multiple different stories here. The bot is part of Microsoft Teams, I guess.
Yeah.
How did it got the impression that the user was frustrated? Just to understand a bit better the tech behind it.
Well, it's basically a motion capture from the Face API of cognitive services, where we in Flow defined, okay, if you figure out that the person is frustrated, then it triggers another flow which triggered the bot in Teams.
Okay, cool.
Which then gives us the guidance for the end user.
Awesome. So let's move on. So I need help.
So I say to Alfred, so yes, please help me. And I'm the sales guy. I want to upload a document for this particular case. So I will ask Alfred how to upload the document. And, bot framework, if you're familiar with that, you start chatting with that. So Alfred says, I have different options. So yeah, which document type you want to upload? So we said here, sales document. And then Alfred says, hey, if you're interested in uploading sales documents, participate in a real-time training. And this now actually triggers Happit, which when you click on this link, it goes to a SharePoint site, and you can see here now the context-based learning framework on top of the real production site in a context base, giving guidance to the end user how to upload this document. So for instance,
here I'll just stop for 1 second here, just so everyone understand what is exactly happening here. Now I have that pop up. That is not part of SharePoint. That is something that is Happit.
Yeah, exactly.
And here it means that Happit is really helping me throughout my work. So I don't need to go to somewhere else. Everything happens in context of where I am, integrated in any type of SharePoint solution, I guess.
In any type of web application. So the thing is that a certain process can start in SharePoint, goes to Dynamics, goes to SAP HANA, goes back to SharePoint. So you can document cross-platform the whole process with the help of Happit.
That's awesome, because even you can adopt your user adoption tool, because it's the same everywhere. So that's amazing. So let me play on that so we can continue here.
Yeah. So, it says also you simply drag and drop a document in here. So we drag and drop the sales document in here. You see Paris tourism growth potential, and the document is in English. And so here, just to show, this is an English document. So the whole system, what is happening now is that this document gets sent again to cognitive services, and it triggers another message in Teams pretty soon, or it should, if I remember the video correctly.
It should. It's coming.
It's coming, yeah. Yes, here we go. So Alfred says, hey, you have a new message. And now in the video, you will see that we have two notifications in the activities going on. So one is in general saying, hey, hero of the day is Jussi. Hey, congratulations, you have finished an online training in sales document handling. So Marcel is so nice and praising my efforts in learning how to work the system. So it gives another social element to the whole thing. Another thing is that in the sales channel, we have a different message saying that, hey, a new lead in Dynamics 365 has been created. So the sales team can now go and have a look in Dynamics 365, what type of lead has now been opened. And since this is Teams, we can open Dynamics 365 right inside the whole Teams context. So here we can see Paris Tourism, my open leads. Paris Tourism is a new lead in here. We can have a look at that. Also, it triggered an email for the customer, for customer approval, saying, hey, please approve or reject this document. And now if we open this document in here, you will see that this document has been translated into French automatically.
That's real French, I can confirm.
So yeah, that is quickly to showcase what we wanted to show in here. Just what is possible to do with Teams, bot, cognitive services, and with Happit. And basically, you can put that on any Office 365 site.
That's awesome. So, would you agree with me that using all the different Office 365 workloads and all the different pieces that exist inside Azure can, if you build a nice application and you put all that together, this actually helps in user adoption when you really like kind of bridge all the different gaps using technology and thinking about the user first when you build those solutions.
Exactly. You just hit the nail to the head, as we say in Swiss German. Think about the user first. So the thing is that usually when business applications or processes are implemented, people design in having the process in mind and not the user. But user adoption is about thinking about the user first, because the users are still at this very moment still doing the majority of the work. I don't know what's happening in 5 to 6 years when AI takes over, but until then, it's still for the human beings. And gamification, how I call it nowadays, is actually human-focused design. And this is basically one of the key takeaways, hopefully, of this webinar, that when you are driving user adoption or trying to implement user adoption, always think on the end user first. How can you make this process as simple, as engaging, and as most valuable for my end users? And not to put another patchwork on top of another patchwork on top of another patchwork, what is happening usually in the enterprise world, right?
It's actually right, and thinking about the users will definitely change the way you think about your next software or your next solution that you want to build with any type of technology. So I think if there's one takeaway here is to boost your user adoption is to use the user inside your user adoption, inside your user. We always call them like user stories. When we build a software, we call them user stories. And there's the word user. It's because it's all about the user. Please keep in mind that the user is part of that solution. So let me go to the Q&A. We had one last question I'd like to discuss, and then we'll go on to the conclusion. What do you think about using kind of bots, and we saw a bot here actually because it's very, very well, everything works together. Bots or Cortana or Siri or Google Home or whatever as part of that user engagement or user adoption, using the conversation or discussion as a mechanism to get help or to get more context. Is that something that you see as a trend that's going to come a lot more in the future? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe, sorry to say that, Seb, but the classical intranet as we know it right now will be going away. So that's my personal opinion, right? So I believe that with the rise of AI and bots, we will be having conversations with computer systems as I'm talking to you right now, and that makes an intranet as we know it as a portal obsolete, totally obsolete, because it's not natural for us to go to one spot and trying to find paths to go somewhere.
Absolutely.
We are by nature we are built to have conversations, and from these conversations tackle down to that information what we are looking for. And I believe that the information systems are still far away in a galaxy far away from that, but it will go towards that direction. And right now we are building the stepping stones into that direction. And you can see also it happening at Microsoft how much investment they put into machine learning and AI and so on. It's one of the main 4 pillars at Microsoft.
Absolutely, and I do a session on a lot of the tech events I'm doing on bots, and this is something that people are starting to kind of get used to and want to push further. It is really something that people want to start leveraging in their organization. So we see the trends that is coming here. So thanks for the question. Call to action. If you like what you saw today, on the Happit side, on the Valo side, or even both together, please drop us a note. Reach out to us on our different platforms. So on Valo Intranet, it's valointranet.com/book-a-demo. You can also reach us on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on any of the team member over there. Please let us know. It's going to be our pleasure to be able to sit with you and showcase how you can boost your user adoption thanks to Valo. And from the Happit side, exactly the same thing. So www.happit.com, you'll be able to get in touch with Jussi and his amazing team to get a demo of Happit in the context of SharePoint or in the context of pretty much whatever you need to drive your user adoption. Anything to add there, Jussi?
Yeah, thanks. I think that's about it. Thanks a lot for the very nice introduction to us and the opportunity that we could have a webinar together. And I'm looking forward already to the next one, Zeb.
Awesome. Everyone, thank you so much for showing up today. We hope you liked it. Please send us an email to the email you're going to receive if you liked it or not. If you have any ideas for our next webinars, please let us know. Would like to thank you so much. The Valo team says thank you. The Happit team says thank you, and see you in the next webinar. Cheers, guys. Cheers, Jussi.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Cheers, bye.